everybody, welcome back to Movie Reel. I'm your host, Kevin Tracy.
And I'm Samantha Tomlinson. And what do we do in this podcast, Kevin?
We talk about movies, review them, and just give our general opinion on them. They may be a little biased, but we have fun doing it. So today we're kind of continuing our pseudo spy trend. Last week we did Get Smart, and now we're going to be doing the first Kingsman movie, Kingsman Secret Service, which it's this was actually really fun rewatching it because
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've seen it. Because for some reason on TV and stuff like that, they only seem to play the second one or the third one. That it seems like no one plays the first one anymore.
That
Um,
seems weird. Like I will
yeah,
say the second one is this is a pretty star-studded cast, but I will say the second one is extra star-studded. Like
yeah,
it's like almost like
but
calm down. We get it.
honestly, I think I liked this one over the second one. But that's just me. But
I I I've only seen these both like I've seen the first two at the same time once, and I enjoyed them. I think this one is definitely better for sure. Uh,
yeah,
there's a big issue I do have with Kingsman that I will bring up later, but I do overall really like this movie. It's nothing that can't make me
yeah.
like this movie.
Did you ever see the third one, the prequel with Ralph Fiennes?
No, I haven't. You
Gotcha. Okay.
told me. I mean, I will see it. I remember you told me it's not the bad guy is not who you think, and I went, oh. It's just okay. So basically, the advertisements are all lies, and you're like, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They pulled a switcheroo at the last minute and revealed trailer number 3, and it showed that Rasputin isn't the bad guy. He's one of the main bad guy's lieutenants, and it's like, oh, okay.
See,
Thanks for letting me know after I saw the
it's
movie.
just is it because Rasputin's is an insanely recognizable historical villain? You know,
Yeah, he was easily the best part of that movie.
really? Okay.
Yeah, he is by far the most charismatic person in that movie. He hams up the entire scene whenever he's on it, and they pretty much kill him a third of the way through the movie. It's like, well, shit, and it's a long movie. It's like a 2 hour 15 movie, like 2 hours and 15 minutes, like this one. But it was just why? Come on,
Hmm.
man.
Um. Anyway, yeah. I with these movies are overall they're really fun, and I will say this movie knows exactly what it is. I really like they're directed by Matt Vaughn, and I really like how they're directed. I really like how they're shot. These have some incredible fight scenes.
Yeah, the choreography is
Yes.
hands down amazing. It's
It's
so good.
it's so fantastic. Holy shit. But
Yeah.
also just the
I
camera work with those scenes is also just they Matt Vaughn knows exactly what he wants. And
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
it's not okay, I think I said last time a couple weeks ago I watched Mission Impossible for the first time, and I was angry because I hated it. It just seemed like it didn't know at all what it was trying to do. I was seething because I was expecting it to be so. I didn't expect it. I thought it was going to be at least a fun movie, and it wasn't. And it didn't seem like it knew what it wanted to do. And the second one was kind of the same. Whereas this, and even Get Smart, they knew what they wanted to do. It was an action comedy, and it was funny. I will say this is definitely better than Get Smart, for sure.
Yes. Oh, I would have issues if you said
But
the other way around.
I Get Smart is more nostalgic. That's why I like it. But this is a lot more I don't know. It's a really nice balance between the action, the comedy. It's not. It's also the characters are all really humorous in their own right. It's really well casted. I it's just
Yeah.
it knows
And
exactly what it
apparently
is.
and apparently this was a really well done comic book adaptation. This was a adaptation of uh, a, a comic book series called Kingsman: The Secret Service, And in the first issue, they kind of had a bit of a cheeky nod to like the opening scene in the movie where um, they rescue Professor Arnold, who is being played by Mark Hamill. In the comic, they're tasked with finding Mark Hamill, who was kidnapped by a villain named Professor Arnold. So they kind of did a bit of a
That
weird
is
cheeky nod.
okay. That, you know what? That's really funny because I don't mind that Mark Hamill is in this, but I do think, why
Yeah,
is Mark
it
Hamill
was
in
kind of
this? So that
random.
makes
It was really random.
but okay, like, and again, I'm not like, that's so weird. Why is he in this? I'm just like, that's, I mean, okay, sure. Like, I'm not against this. Just why? But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah,
funny.
because he's only in two scenes. He's only in two scenes of this movie.
His the opening scene, and then like the scene where Colin Firth goes to
Yeah,
meet him.
spoiler
Yeah,
alert. Yeah, where he
it's
blows
kind of in the
up.
beginning. Like, somewhere, it's not
Yeah,
that, it's not a big, yeah. It's um. But yeah, this is so the cast of this is, so it stars Taron Egerton, then
as Eggsy,
Eggsy, and then Colin Firth, Samuel Jackson, uh,
Michael
Michael
Caine,
Caine, Michael Caine, uh, Mark Strong, um,
Jack Davenport
Jack. Yeah, Jack.
as
I
Lancelot.
forgot for a second. I was like, "What's his name?" I know him. He's in Pirates. He's
Yeah,
Norrington. It's Jack Davenport.
yeah,
Yes, the
Commodore.
Commodore.
Yeah,
Yes, um, and
yeah.
even he would have
I
been,
forgot he.
yeah, if he stayed.
I totally forgot that he was in this movie until I saw the opening scene. It's like, oh, that's right. That's why I don't remember him because he's only in this scene.
Yeah, he's only in like the very beginning, and then he's probably
Yeah, and
sliced in half.
yeah, by Gazelle, who is played by she was I'm drawing a
I
blank on her
know.
name, but she was the mummy in the
Yeah.
Tom Cruise Mummy movie.
Our
That
favorite movie.
classic
Our favorite
movie.
movie. I'm looking it up.
There's no problems with that movie whatsoever. And her name
So
is Sophia Botella.
yes. Um.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it was also really funny watching this movie because the opening scene kind of sets the whole tone for the rest of the movie, which I love when movies do that. Because he goes in, like Jack Davenport does this whole like gentleman spy routine. He's killing like all these henchmen and like a surprisingly like gruesome manner. It's like, okay, this is gonna be a bit violent, but he's doing like this really like flashy kind of like stylized like subdue and then like with like a silenced pistol killing everyone, and he kills a guy, takes a scotch, like, oh yes, a 62 brandy, I'd be ashamed to waste a good drink, and he's doing this whole like schlocky James Bond kind of gentleman spy routine, and then he immediately gets killed by being sliced in half with a girl who has like prosthetic legs that have like blades hidden in them. It's like, oh, okay, so we're gonna play it like that. All right, I can get behind this.
Yeah, I agree. It's like I said, this movie knows exactly what it is, and it shows that within the first like 5 minutes of the movie. And it never really like steers towards anything else. And it's great. It's kind of refreshing. I feel like, especially, I feel like lately I've
Yeah,
been watching a lot of movies where I'm like, oh my god, this sucks. And so this has been a while since I've watched this movie. And not to say that this movie doesn't have some flaws.
it definitely
Yeah.
does. Yeah,
But overall, this is, I mean, we're both fans of this movie.
yeah. The choreography alone
It's probably the best part.
is a must.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hands down like one of the best features of this movie. The choreography and the cinematography go hand in
Mm-hmm.
hand together. They this is a stuntman's movie. I remember hearing being described, and it shows because every action that you see being done in this movie is being focused on so well, like very closely by by a camera crew, and like I don't know if like all the cameramen were like stunt actors or if the director was a stuntman, but it the fact that they were able to follow the action so
Mm-hmm.
closely and were able to show people like us, like we don't know shit about like stuntman work or anything like that, like we were able to see like how it was done because they did like all these like they I think they did like a couple slow mo shots, but they were able to do a way that it wasn't just quick cuts, like just fast edits. That it was just one clear, concise motion through and through
Yeah,
for the
there's a
most part.
couple. I think the like okay, it's what's funny is I think yeah I agree. I think both movies, this and the second one, the the choreography for some of these fights are just it's just are so great, and they never like they're so visually like you can't look away. Like they're visually pleasing and like because it's like almost beautiful to
Yeah.
watch, and they get pretty. Some of them get in this one in particular. Colin Firth is in this fight scene where he ends up killing pretty much every single person in this church.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
Are we
we
talking about
gotta
the
talk about
Freebird
that scene
scene?
because basically, okay, so basically,
Oh, yeah. That is hands down. If you haven't seen the movie, you've seen this scene. It's
yes.
amazing. It is the single best scene of the entire movie is the Freebird Church
So
massacre
basically,
scene.
so Samuel Jackson is our villain, and we'll kind of talk a little bit more about him in a minute. But his idea basically is to through SIM cards. He's like a tech billionaire genius, and basically through these SIM cards that are adaptable.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Steve Jobs kind of surrogate character was the kind of vibe I was getting off of
Yeah,
him.
he's or think of like
Like
a think of the the tech guy, the phone tech guy in Mitchell's versus the Machines, except except
oh yeah.
like he's staying hip and with the times, but he is um obviously pretty bonkers because he's trying to like basically
Yeah.
the idea is to it's something that your phone will do to shut off a part of your brain, so you everyone will basically start fighting each other and killing each other to basically kind of cleanse the world
Yeah.
essentially. And so as a test, Colin Firth goes to check out this it's this church. It's like a hate group. It's like a white supremacist group, and uh we unknowingly Samuel Jackson's character basically sounds the alarm and tests out to see if the SIM cards work. And Colin Firth just starts. Everyone in the church starts killing each other, but Colin Firth is just following him from the back of the church all the way up to the front, just moving
Yeah.
in various ways, killing people. You like it's just so visually like holy shit, you can't look away, and
While the entire time they're playing Freebird and it is so insane to watch. Like this is a
it is
brutal fight scene
it
because
is
he's like
I will
he's
say this, it's very gruesome. It's
yeah.
really almost like shocking, but again it's so fun you can't look away. Like it's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it and apparently like Colin Firth did like a lot of his own like stunt work for this. Like so it that's actually him doing a lot of the work for this. So he worked on that scene. I remember it was like he worked on that scene for like
That's
2
awesome.
months just like getting like the
That's awesome.
choreography
I love
right.
Colin Firth.
Cuz like he like yeah, like the dedication that scene for him to do that scene on his own is insane because there's a couple moments where like he's firing gun, he's getting shot back, he's getting hit with like a modified like club that turns into a spear. There's like an explosion that happens at the altar later on. Like he is getting like just as many hits in as he's getting, and it shows because like after a while, like he doesn't leave that church unscathed even though he's like packing like like all these like crazy like gadgets and gizmos and stuff like that. Like he's like he gets stabbed at one point, he gets shot a couple times, but I mean he's got like basically like Kevlar hidden in his suit, but like he goes to the ringer, but he comes out on top, and it's so insane watching it because the entire time Samuel Jackson and his entourage are monitoring the whole thing. Is like, wait, it's affecting everyone there, not just the people with SIM cards, because apparently, like the SIM cards were supposed to have like a small proximity of affecting people, but the fact that it was affecting everyone there, even though I think he said that like only 60% of people in the church had his SIM cards. It's like, oh my god, this is a huge success. We can pull this off like right away. And the only people that aren't affected are people that he is uh, convinced of his plan and put like a like a sensor in
Yeah.
like the back of their head. There's like a scar near their ear, and then he also happened to kidnap a bunch of like random celebrities and dignitaries. That's like, well, you guys are gonna need to lead and or do whatever I'm gonna need you to do in the new world. And at one point kidnaps it's like the
I think
princess
it's
of like
Sweden, yeah.
Sweden or Denmark or something like that. And yeah, uh, some northern European country. And it was just it's like, oh, okay, so this plan is going to go off without a hitch, and there's very few hiccups because as soon as Colin Firth walks out, he's used all of his gadgets. He's got nothing left. He's got no ammo, and Samuel L. Jackson comes up and does the whole smug thing. It's like, oh, so this must be the part where the bad guy gives off his whole plan speech, and I come up with some convoluted way to kill you, and you come up with some equally convoluted way to escape. Well, this isn't that movie, and then just promptly shoots him in the head like immediately. It's like I think I thought it was kind of funny that he did do the whole like calling out like that trope of like spy movies like that. Like every James Bond movie for the most part does some crazy elaborate like, oh, I'm strapped to a table and there's a laser slowly heading towards me. How do I get out of here? It's like, good thing I have some mirrors on the bottom of my
Yeah,
shoes to
yeah.
reflect the lasers. Like some
There
stupid plan, yeah, so yeah, some stupid gizmo or last minute like hiccup in the machine will cause you to escape. And it's like, no, we're just gonna shoot
yeah,
you.
and I think I yes, I agree. And that's the thing is earlier in the movie, so Colin Firth meets Samuel Jackson like undercover. He's pretending to be like a potential like donator, yes, to the
Investor, I
charity
think,
and
or
the project.
something.
And
Yeah.
so they have a conversation about spy movies and how they like the older ones that are, you have this ridiculous villain with this crazy plan to just, take over the world, and they have like basically think of like, because like I've only seen one James Bond movie, and obviously it's really good, but it's not like, I wouldn't really say it's an entertaining movie. I wouldn't really describe it as fun.
Which one did you see?
I've only seen the first one, Casino Royale, but like it's a good movie, but I
Oh,
wouldn't.
oh,
I
that really confused me when you said first ones. Like
Oh,
they've been
okay.
coming out
I
for a
mean,
long
sorry,
time.
with Daniel Craig, but I mean, like it's not
Okay, okay.
it's a much more mature, um, like my dad is more of a James Bond fan than I am, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is a little bit more lighter tone. Um,
yeah.
but this movie, that was the thing that I will say is one of the issues I do have with this movie is I think they make it very clear that they're that kind of spy movie with ridiculous, outlandish villains, and they have all these cool gadgets, but they make it a little too. It's like, we get it. Like, you said it once,
It
and then
yeah. It's a little self aware at times, which kind of gets a bit
it's a little eye
old pretty quick.
rolly.
But
Yeah, yeah, but
yeah, but I mean, thankfully, it doesn't do it that much to the
no, it
point where
doesn't.
it kind of ruins the
Yeah,
experience.
it's more kind of just like, oh, we get it, but it doesn't go. I mean, I've seen things that go, other movies that go so much more. That, I wouldn't say it's necessarily. It's almost shoving it down my throat. Like if it did it one more time, it would be shoving it down our throats. But it just
Yeah,
skitters away from that.
yeah, it rides the line pretty heavily. But another thing that I wanted to mention was I kind of noticed that, well, this came out in 2014, same time as John Wick, and ever since those two movies came out, I've noticed a trend with like a lot of action movies very much, and I think this is a very good thing that this is a trend that's happened, is that a lot more focus and emphasis has been focused on like fight scene choreography and cinematography going with that, because that was a huge draw for those movies. Like John Wick is just it's a very minimal plot with maximum rewards in terms of all these like fight scenes and shootout, and like it just so much heavily emphasizes all of the action and showcases all the cool things that you can do with that. And they do the same thing with Kingsman, and with like the following sequels and other similar action movies have since kind of adapted that John Wick like game plan of following the action. And I'm just really kind of happy seeing stuff like that, because that just means we get more cool scenes like the Freebird like massacre scene that we get in this movie. And it's just I really look forward to seeing more action movies that have that same kind of mentality going forward.
Yeah, and I that's a good observation. I haven't John Wick is high on my list. I really want to see it, and
Wait,
my
you haven't seen John Wick?
no, but like
Oh,
I'm
we're
dying
doing
to
that for
see
the
it.
show now. We're doing that for the
Okay,
show now.
I'm like dying to watch it because I love Keanu,
A-
and
any
I've
excuse
heard
to
really
want
good things about it.
any excuse to watch John Wick, I'm down. Any
Okay,
excuse. It's like happy
um,
retirement. Let's watch John Wick. Oh, we got to put the dog down. Let's watch John Wick.
That's a little. Isn't that a little too on the nose? Because
A
isn't it
little
about
bit,
him like
yeah.
getting his dog? Getting his dog. Okay, I know that much about John Wick. But anyway, um, that's enough. Actually, brings up another thing. This movie has, and the second one in particular, or actually, yeah, no, they both have really good soundtracks.
Yeah, no, it's very catchy. But it's not distracting with like
No.
the soundtrack. It's just it's very fitting, like original scores and like background music that do fit the tone of like a James Bond movie set in like modern day. And which I was a little concerned when I saw more of like a synopsis of this movie, because for the most part this whole movie is just Eggsy being trained to potentially join the Kingsmen. And I
Hmm.
was worried that it was going to be kind of like a this was going to be an edgy Asian Cody Banks kind of movie, if you remember that movie. Um,
Oh my god, it's been
yeah,
1,000 years since I've seen Agent Cody Banks. Oh my
yeah,
god.
yeah with
Hillary
Frankie
Duff.
and Frankie Muniz. And
Yes, Frankie
honestly,
Muniz.
that was the height of Frankie Muniz's career. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna say it. That was the height of his career. Um, but it was just
Yeah,
when
oh
I
my
was
god.
watching it, I was like really worried. Is like, oh, this is just gonna be like a really edgy uh Asian Cody Banks. And as I'm like watching trailers and footage, it's like, yeah, this is kind of like the exact same thing. It's like, oh, we got the crazy like showcase of all the gadgets. Like, is he gonna make a bunch of jokes? Yeah, he's making a bunch of jokes, albeit they're more edgy in this one than they were in Cody Banks, but they're still there. It's like, oh, well, you also need to do this to there's a mission that he has to do during training. It's like, oh, I need you and the other two recruits to try and seduce this informant to get the information out of her. It's like, oh, okay, I think they kind of tried to do that in Cody Banks, but he didn't know how to talk to girls, so I guess they're doing the same thing. But I was really worried that it was just going to be uh, just uh, Agent Cody Banks meets like uh, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? What was I'm trying to think of an example? Agent Cody Banks meets like Super Bad or something like that. Just an
Okay.
edgier version of Cody Banks.
Yeah, I think because really, yeah, like you said, it's just Eggsy becoming. He's going through the there's like an elimination process. He's going through training, and at the end, he will hopefully become a Kingsman. And we're following
Yeah,
Harry or Galahad, which is his name, is his like spy because they all of their names are like the code names are like Knights of the Round Table. So basically, um,
yeah.
uh, Eggsy, and they're all hoping to be the new
They're all
Lancelot
yeah,
because Lancelot
yeah,
just
they're all
died.
competing because yeah, Jack Davenport died in the beginning of the movie. And then there's Michael Caine, who's Arthur, who's in charge of the Kingsmen. And then there's Mark Strong, who's Merlin, who's like the I think he was like quartermaster or something. So he's like kind of like running a lot of the behind the scenes operation.
Yeah,
He's the man behind the chair kind of
he's
guy.
the hacker. He's the the
He's the inside man
yeah.
that like he's yeah.
Merlin might be my favorite, and I will say, spoiler, in the second one, his death scene, it's very heartbreaking, but maybe one of my favorite death scenes
Oh,
ever, and that's how I want to go.
y-
Standing on a landmine,
weird
singing. I don't know if I would sing
singing country
I don't know if I would sing
roads.
John Denver, but I'd sing something. It would maybe be
Don't forget, you got to headbutt
yeah.
a henchman with a machine gun and take at least five of them out.
I don't know. I've thought a lot about what song it would be. I want to say it would be something from a Harry Potter musical, but I don't know.
The fact that you put so much thought into what song you would sing for your
If I
death
was standing on a
is
landmine.
so yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, if I was in that situation, I'd probably come up with something really trolly as well. So I
Like
don't
sing like
know. Um,
Never Gonna Give You Up by Rick Ashley. Astley.
I would just fuck with everyone that's
Or Friday by
watching.
Rebecca Black.
Okay, not that trolly. I'm
um
not a complete monster, Sam. Thank you. I have
um
some dignity, and I would like to keep it before I die.
but yeah, we're
Shout
just
out to all the
following
Shout out to all the Rebecca Black fans watching right now.
but we're basically just watching Eggsy go through the training
Sir,
and recruitment, and
yeah,
we're watching Colin Firth's character Harry, aka Galahad, go through. He's on a mission and trying to figure out like what
what
is
what
who was Professor Arnold, why was he kidnapped, why was like what's and piecing it all together, and it all leads back to Samuel Jackson's character. What was his first name? It was Valentine was his last
I
name.
think they just called him Valentine.
Just Valentine. Okay.
Yeah, if he had a first name, I think they said it like once, like "Hi, I'm John Valentine" or something like that. But no,
John Valentine. Yeah.
everyone just calls him Valentine. He's like head of like Valentine Technologies or something like that, something equally generic. And he does like like phone, internet, like a bunch of like Steve Jobs esque like work, and he's like a tech billionaire and has all these business and political connections, because there's a couple scenes where we see him talking to other like dignitaries and other like people trying to convince them to join his side, to like basically like make sure that they're still alive in the new world so they can get like the brain implant chip so that they don't die in the culling. And at one point he's giving this really um not really a self-aware speech, but he does give a speech that does have some truth behind it, which is why I think he's a really fun villain, because in his eyes he's doing the right thing, which is all which I think we've said this before, is that the best kind of villain is a villain that is the good guy in their own book.
Yes.
And he is 100% of that mentality, because he's doing this to cull the earth of what I'm not sure if he said like the undesirables, but he's trying to cull the earth so that way the earth can survive, because with the massive population spikes that we've had, that the earth and all of its resources won't sustain it, and then global warming, like he goes for this whole like environmental angle for his character on why he's doing this. And he's giving this speech to basically Obama, because it's in the White House. It's a black guy, and we only see the back of his head, and it's a very Obama-esque impression that the guy is given. It's like, okay, so he just convinced Obama. Um, um,
Oh, I didn't catch that. If anything, I was like at the end when. Okay, so basically, but here's the thing about it. Obviously, the people that
yeah,
will survive are like rich people that can, pay their way. And it shows
yeah,
basically they turn, as a distraction for Eggsy. Merlin turns on all of the implants, which causes all of these people's like heads to explode essentially, and we see just like all even
in
like
the
in the White House, and so I'm like, did the president just die? Also, Obama
Yeah.
wouldn't go for this. Like, come on.
I but that was also another really fun scene is that it's not happening all at once. It's doing it in like this really stylized like domino
Hmm.
fashion, and they're doing it to oh my
Is
god,
it the
I
like?
want to say Ode to Joy. I want to say Ode to Joy, but that's because we just watched
I know you
Get
mean it's
Smart. It's not Ode to Joy. It's a classical
pomp and
song, but they're doing it
circumstance.
in like
Pomp
domino
and
fashion.
circumstance.
That's it. Yeah. So like dun dun dun.
Yes.
Yeah, a
Yes.
graduation theme. Yeah, and like everyone's heads are exploding in like these very bright, vibrant colors. Like there's a bunch of greens, there's reds, there's blues. It's a weird like rainbow, and every time their heads explode, it's like a really like cartoony like mushroom cloud and it's really funny because they're exploding to the beat of the song and it's just really stylized on this outlandishly cartoonish and horrifically violent when you realize that these are people
Yeah.
that you're watching blow up and die. But it's just it's a really funny scene because by that point, like, okay, there's like three people left I need to deal with, and it's like Gazelle, Valentine, and like a couple other people that show up in the second one because reasons.
Yeah. Um. But
Um,
yeah. Anyway, so
yeah, no,
yeah, I think overall, I think we both really enjoy this movie, but I realize we've been doing a good job. We've talked for about 30 minutes, and we've primarily talked about positive things about this movie.
yeah, we've been high praising this movie for a while. I think it's time to kind of get to
This
our
is
gripes with
probably,
this.
I will say, my number one biggest issue with this movie because to me, and like I said, it doesn't make me not like this movie. It's what I find frustrating about it is it almost unravels the concept of Kingsman because so Michael Caine's character we find has never been a fan of Eggsy, and Eggsy's dad at one point was like him and was going through recruitment and died in the process, saving other people. And Michael Caine
Yeah,
pretty much never has let Colin Firth's character live it down. And at the very so throughout the training process, they're given a puppy, and the puppy will grow. And as they, which that was the thing. I was like, how long is this training process? Because yeah, the dogs grow, but we never like. Is it been a couple months? I guess
yeah, and that was another thing that I didn't really like about the movie is that there's no real indication of how much time has passed because there's a point in the movie
it could
where
be have been a few weeks. Like it feels like it's a few weeks, but it's definitely a
yeah,
couple of months.
yeah, but yeah, because there's a point in the movie where Colin Firth tracks down Mark Hamill's character, and he's like trying to interrogate him, and he's asking like too many questions that Valentine panics and detonates Arnold's implant, but because of that, it there was like some kind of like residue or like chemical in that caused Colin Firth to basically get like knocked into a coma for like almost like the entirety of like the training sequences, and then he jumped back and goes pretty much straight into like the church massacre scene, like almost immediately after waking up. It's probably like a few hours or like a few days afterwards, but for us it's like 10 minutes. Um, but the only other indicator that we have for how much time has passed is when we first are introduced to Eggsy's character. He has a mom and like an abusive stepdad, but he also has a little baby sister. And when we meet her, she's a baby. And then when we get to like the end of the movie, which pretty much is like the end of the movie is like we go through the whole climax, but that happens like pretty much like the day after they've finished like their training, and she's like a full grown like toddler. She's got to be like at least like 2 or 3. So it's like, how did they do this for years? Because like at first I was doing like the whole timeline on like you said like the dogs like growing up, and it's like, okay, like that's probably like, yeah, like a couple months. I don't know how long it takes for like a pug to go from like a puppy that's like maybe like 8 weeks old to, I guess, full grown in
Yeah.
this movie. Or
Yeah, I have to
like it's hard
assume
to tell with pugs.
it's
Yeah.
been at least a couple. I would say it's maybe it's like 6 months, but it's just not clear at all. There's like
Yeah.
indicators, but it's not very clear. But yeah, anyway, aside from that, at the very end, so the final test, so one of the other potential recruits, uh it's Roxy, and she there, I will say, I do appreciate there's no like she's not a love interest for Eggsy at all. They're just kind of bros. Like they have each other's back. They work together throughout this, and they're in the final two to be Lancelot. And the final
Yeah.
test, he has to go meet Michael Caine, Arthur, and he basically gives him a gun and just says, "Shoot your dog." And Eggsy can't do it, and this made me mad because at first I'm thinking, are they gonna maybe make it a twist and say good job, because then you would have been blindly following orders. No, he doesn't get into Kingsman because he didn't do it. And then uh Colin Firth, Harry is furious with him. You threw this away because you wouldn't have just done it. And he turns out there were blanks in the dog. It blanks in the gun,
Yeah.
in the
In the
gun,
gun.
in the gun,
Blanks.
in the gun.
Oh my god, that
But
poor
there were
dog.
blanks in the gun, and basically it was really just like, but just it just angered, and it just kind of like I was like, wait a minute. And I remember talking about this with my sister's boyfriend because he agreed. It's like, he was just so are they supposed to just blindly follow orders? And if it was more of a case of like, sometimes you have to sacrifice something you love, or something, like if there was an instance of, if it's like attachment, like this is something you really care about, would you be willing, if it was in the best interest of like of the world, of like whatever, their mission, whatever, to let something that you care about die, would you do it? And yeah, if he can't do it, that is of concern,
Yeah.
that's fair. But like, that wasn't the case, and it just seemed like they wanted to have that moment of him getting kicked out, and they wanted to have that moment of him having being attached to his dog, but there's no real, I don't think there's no substance to it. There's no real reason why
Yeah.
that had to happen, especially because the previous task. So what you had mentioned before, when they're in a bar and they're trying to basically get in with this girl to get information, and it turns out that
Yeah. Yeah.
the whole thing was just a way to get them all drugged, and then they're tied up to a train track, and really it's a test of, there's a track coming and someone's basically like, who are you guys, what's Kingsman, who are you working for? And they say, is
Yeah.
is Kingsman
It's a
worth
test
dying
of
for? And
loyalty.
Exy's like, fuck yeah. And like, that's really just what it is. And so it's like, okay, they already are loyal, he's loyal to him, you've already established that they're loyal to Kingsman, so really it's just a question of like, I think that like attachment, or okay, you're like that, like I feel like they established that he's willing to do whatever it takes to protect Kingsman. And so
He's
the
willing
fact
to
that he
die for
wouldn't,
Kingsman.
it
Yeah.
just angered me so much because I'm like, they wanted him to get kicked out because he wouldn't kill his dog, and there's no real reason why he actually needed to kill his dog. If it was like a scenario, there was no
Yeah.
scenario
And
given. There was no like, your dog has rabies, you need to cut it down. Like, there was no reason for it, and that's just what
yeah.
made it empty.
That
Like, it made it
and
like it
yeah.
no
That
substance to it.
my issue with I also have an issue with the shoot the dog scene, and that was, and it, like, you bring up a lot of valid points, but my take on that was, I remember seeing like years ago, like, I don't even know if this is true, it was like some other like spy movie, and it was like a CIA thing where part of their training is that they're given a dog, and part of their duties is that they need to care for the dog, and at the end of it, unbeknownst to them, part of their challenge is to kill the dog to prove that they can also blindly follow orders. Like, that's part of the process. That wasn't, and I thought that's like, okay, so far knowing every challenge that they have been given has been one mind fuck after another. Nothing is straightforward. Like, they're given a challenge where, all right, you have to skydive out of this plane. Oh, one of you doesn't actually have a parachute, and they all end up having parachutes, which I also have a problem with, because him telling them that could have caused multiple deaths of them, like, oh, like, let's, like, accidentally, like, causing, like, multiple of them, like, potentially, like, falling to their death, which a couple of them almost do.
I
And
mean,
then there
they
was,
establish,
yeah,
they say right away, like, this is really dangerous, guys. So if you don't want to do this, fine. But obviously, you're out. Like, but
yeah.
yeah, and I think I
But
yeah.
yeah, it's just constant mind fuckery for each challenge. Like, nothing is straightforward. Like they're being drowned in their sleep, and then they have to figure out, which also bullshit, that Eggsy was able to punch a two-way mirror while completely submerged underwater. That is bullshit. I will not accept that as any form of truth.
Okay.
There's no way he was strong enough to generate enough force to punch through that thick of glass. um there was, yeah, but knowing that every challenge was some weird mind fuck going through, that there was no way that it was going to be something as straightforward as, like, the CIA ops doing of shooting the dogs. Like, okay, either the dog the gun has blanks, or he has to do some, like, uh he has to do, like, some kind of, like, thing that's, like, shows, like, oh no, like, I've raised this dog, like, no, he's part of the team, like, he is just as much a Kingsman as I am, or something like that, to the point where it's like, oh no, you didn't shoot the dog, all right, you're out. Like, wait, fuck you, that's it.
And I can, yeah,
Like, yeah, no,
I get
like,
what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's so
I
stupid.
I can the thing is you make a valid point, and I can understand that, like, it's everything, yeah, has been, there's been twists, nothing has been straightforward. So to have this straightforward order does seem kind of odd.
Completely out of
But
left field,
I
yeah.
feel like if anything, it's not as much of the order as it is the reasoning behind it, and there wasn't any. And I just think, like, like I said, they've already established that they're loyal, they've already established that he'll take all the risks. Like, I feel like, just so you want him just to blindly follow orders in the next later after Harry dies, he comes, Eggsy kind of is basically joining, basically he becomes the new Galahad, and he comes and he has a
Yeah,
conversation with Arthur, and ends up finds out that he's part of, he's one of those, Valentine's plans. He has
Valentine's,
a
like,
implant,
people,
and
yeah.
he ends up killing him. Like, you can't convince, like, I feel like the whole concept, and they even say Kingsman is not affiliated with any government because, there can be more corruption. Things don't get done properly or given the correct focus because of, government intervention. So the fact that it's just, so
Yeah,
just to blindly
yeah.
follow an order just seems completely on Kingsman. And I just found that to be bullshit. So I think that is my
Yeah, and
that's probably my biggest issue with this, because it just unravels the concept of Kingsman, and that it's they're
and
basically, like they say, they're modern day knights. They're just, they're heroes, kind of just under, and even, yes, and even
they're
Colin Firth
chivalrous, yeah.
has, he has newspaper headlines all over his how in his office, and it's just, they're all just
It,
normal, like, just, there's just things going on in the world. And he says, because obviously if I do my job right, what I shouldn't, that information shouldn't be on the cover of any newspaper. The world should just continue on. And so, yeah.
yeah, which I thought,
Yeah.
was really cool. I don't know why, but that kind of reminded me of Men in Black, where Tommy Lee Jones is, like, going through, like, all these tabloids and is like, oh yeah, this is the best investigative journalism on the planet, and he's just reading, like, all these, like, weekly weird news. It's like, oh, farmer ate my husband's skin, and it was just, I don't know why it reminded me of that, because they're all just these, like, trashy, like, celebrity tabloid magazines, and just pinned to his wall and framed. But uh kind of going back to what you said of Eggsy and Roxy kind of being bros and having each other's back. That was something that I had a problem with. Was I mean, this kind of dips more into the sequel rather than this one, but I feel like it kind of stands because it kind of started in this one. Was I'm fine if a movie doesn't have a like a romantic like a romance subplot in it. Like Blade had like a very much similar thing of like, oh, there's Blade, and then there's like the doctor lady, and at the end of the movie, normally at that time when something like that happens, like, oh, they kiss, there was secretly like a romance there the whole time. And this movie, like, they have chemistry,
Yeah.
like Eggsy and Roxy, like they're like they are they're solid. Like, I could totally believe that there was like a hidden like kind of like romance thing like happening like at the end of the movie. Like, they meet up, it's like, oh, good job, it's like we saved the world, and then they just like hook up after that or something like that. But instead he ends up hooking up with the kidnapped princess of Denmark, because she says like, if you save the world, we do it in the asshole. It's like, I'll be right back, and then he goes back and has sex with her, and
Well,
in the
wait.
second one he's in a
which
relationship
which
with her.
which I have to say I find so funny, just because literally the one of the last scenes, I guess there's like a mid-credit scene, but the last scene of the movie is Merlin is still on the computer, and he still, is seeing everything that Eggsy is seeing, and he literally looks on the screen and just sees an ass, like this woman's bare ass, and he's
Yeah.
like, "Whoa!" and close.
Yeah, and he goes like, oh, and he
Like,
closes his computer. It's
I
like, okay.
see, yeah, I do think that they had chemistry, but I don't. I mean, I'm kind of with you. I feel like if it went that way, fine. But I kind of like that it didn't, and I think because I think really it was about Eggsy when you know Harry reaches out to Eggsy. It's because like Eggsy's kind of just had his dad died when he was young, didn't even really know why he died. His mom kind of got mixed up in a
Married an
yeah, got
abusive
mixed up in a
alcoholic.
bad abusive relationship, and they're kind of living in this crappy apartment, and like he's just doing, petty crimes, and he's just kind of on the wrong side of the track. So it's really just about bettering himself. So I don't think, yeah, I mean, it could have, they could have very well, there could have been enough. I think if anything, if they she dies right away in the next one. So if anything, if there was a little bit
Yeah,
like
which
of
yeah.
potential romantic chemistry and then it grew into something in the next one, I would have been more fine with that. But I will say I do find it funny that yeah, it ends that's how he meets the princess, and literally in the next one. But also that's a very cliche. He saves the world and then air quotes kisses hooks with the prince kisses the princess, and then yeah, the next one they're in a relationship.
I
Like it's
Yeah, I know. Yeah, and at the end of the second one they get married, but I don't know. It just I don't know. It just felt like the movie kind of teased you, because like the entire movie, like she's like one of the only people that like has his back in the beginning, because he's like really the only one who doesn't come from like a wealthy or like influential family. He doesn't really have like anything uh that he brings to the table other than like, outside the box thinking. That it's like, oh, I'm like he's like the outlier there, and she's like the only one that has his back, and like continuously like they pick each other up. Like, she's afraid to jump, so he jumps with her out of the airplane. She's afraid that she doesn't have the parachute, so he like holds on to her. So like it was like a whole thing, like they have chemistry. They have like all these scenes where it's like, okay, like they have trust. They have like a very strong relationship with one another. And then at like the very last moment, he's like, all right, I'm gonna go sleep with this princess. And then she's kind of like his like wingman for like a dinner with like the princess's parents. It's like, all right, it's like he friend zoned her, because like the entire time, like I legitimately thought like in the movie when she has to go up and destroy like Valentine's like satellite, I thought that they were gonna be like, oh, when this is all over, like, oh, we should like meet up. It's like, hey, if you survive this, or it's like, when we survive this, like, yeah, let's do something together. And then they kiss or something, and then go on
well,
to
I would
the
say in
rest
that
of the movie.
case, if
But I don't know, Yeah, it just seemed very kind
I'm
of
kind of
pulled
I
the
see
rug
your
out from
point, but I'm
under
kind of
us.
fine with it either way. If anything, I will say if it gone that way, you know she would have died. Whenever they make plans, that means the person's going to die or get whatever something's going to spoil those plans.
Yeah, which would
I
have
mean,
been
yeah,
more
I don't know.
motivation for Eggsy.
I think they didn't they
He could
they
have
kind
he
of
could have
just
gone full John Wick on them.
they didn't really spend really the focus, the real relationship of the movie was him and Harry. So I think there wasn't really enough room. I mean, not saying
Oh,
they couldn't. I don't
100%.
know. I
Yeah,
feel like if they did, it wouldn't have been.
as fleshed out.
Yeah, I think it wouldn't have been very fleshed out of anything. I think if they had left it more like there's something there and it kind of develops in the next one, that I think would have made it a little stronger. But again, like it doesn't even go that way. But yeah, I
Yeah,
love his relationship with Harry just because like Harry knows him so well for someone who, even though he's just met him, like because like he's very to him, Eggsy's also very predictable. Like when he shows him the Kingsman store and is giving him like a suit and shoes and showing him all the weapons, and he takes one, and just as Harry's walking out, Harry's just like, "Put it back, Eggsy," and then Eggsy puts it back. Like I don't know, or when they're
it's
when
like a kid in a candy store.
yeah,
It's like he's just like the pseudo father figure of the movie because like he's like the only one. He's like one of like few people in the movie who's actually like known and met Eggsy's father, who died in like the very beginning of this movie, like 17 years before the events of this movie even happened.
or even like there's a scene I love where when Harry is woken up and he's showing him and they're talking about Valentine, and Eggsy shows them the like his announcement, and he literally grabs Merlin's like it's like a tablet, like a remote control or whatever, and
Yeah.
then Merlin grabs it back, and then Harry grabs it from him, and Merlin just kind of like crosses his arms. Like they keep just both taking my thing. Like they're both very they operate similarly. Like and I kind of so
Yeah.
they were also
They are children sometimes, but in the best
yeah.
possible way.
Um yeah, but that I will say, and I had one more other actually that kind of has I had one other sort of issue. I feel like it bothered me less this time than it did the first time, but because he didn't kill his dog, he was not part of Kingsman. So he then obviously in this scenario, because they kind of need everyone they can get, he and Harry's dead, he kind of joins Kingsman. I'm like, okay, is he in it forever? Like, I mean, I think he had proven himself before the dog. So, like, is he just, is he only in Kingsman because Harry's dead? Is he officially, like, I don't know. I feel like, what was other than this mission, what was like, because it seemed a little too, okay, yeah, you're in Kingsman now. It's like,
Well, I mean, he was able to find like a massive source of corruption in like the leadership of Kingsman. He saved the world in a plot that like he himself also helped like uncover. He was able to coordinate a team with another barely trained agent who became Lancelot and like their like senior quartermaster in an attempt that to save the world because they didn't know if there was any other compromised Kingsman agents. So with like a three-man strike team, they were able to save the world with him at the lead. And yeah, I feel like that's a pretty decent resume patter for
yeah, I
joining
mean,
Kingsman.
yeah, I think at the time when I first saw it, I was more like, that final little like you did it, you passed the test kind of thing didn't really happen for him, but like yeah, he did enough that he should have qualified, and he yeah,
so so basically, you were waiting for like a scene where like Merlin is like, there's a spot for you if you want
I
it,
guess
kind of
so.
thing. Like you wanted like some kind of like verbal confirmation that he was
I
a part
guess
of
so,
Kingsman.
yes.
Okay, okay. Because
I
that's what
guess
it's
so.
sounding like. It's like I just want someone to say that they're proud of him.
Basically. um so overall, Kevin, do you think this movie is real?
I
And actually,
I don't know. This one,
let me. Should we say real with just what we know, or real including the sequel? Because I feel like that's going to change the answer.
I'm going. I feel like it will, so I'm gonna go with
Yeah.
just this movie. I'm not gonna really go into the sequel because the sequel is the sequel. So with everything that we know for this one, I feel like there would be a lot more emphasis for the search and rescue of all these celebrities and dignitaries that Valentine
Oh
has
yes, like
captured,
Iggy
and the
Azalea
fact that he's
just
captured,
is missing apparently.
yeah, yeah, like he's captured a lot of high profile celebrity and political or royal like dignitaries that is like that's gonna put a target on his back if he was like the last person who's been seen with a lot of these. Like there would have been some kind of pattern that would have connected to him in some way if he's kidnapping like celebrities and dignitaries from all over the world. Like he kidnapped Iggy Azalea, he's kidnapped the Princess of Denmark. So like he would have multiple agencies from across the globe investigating this, so he would have been caught like on that alone if he's captured that many people. And then there's the people that he had bribed that like I mean I know he was like attempting to like bribe like all these like celebrities and dignitaries, and that's why he kidnapped them because they said no, because we can't let his plan leak out. But if if Obama had said no to him, what was he gonna do? He was in the middle of the White House. Like, what was he gonna do? Was he gonna have Gazelle overpower three Secret Service agents and kidnap Obama? It's like, no, that's an unrealistic expectation that you are overestimating your abilities to be as charismatic as you are to convince your genocidal plot that will kill 99% of the planet's people. It makes no sense that you think that you would get away with that, even if you think that your morals are justified, even though they're not. So I'm gonna say no. This movie is not realistic and would not happen. At least on the side of Valentine being the main bad guy, he would be caught within a
Yeah,
week.
I think I have to agree. Um I think the like I said, I think everything like I think again, this is like taking into consideration the characters. I don't really. There's nothing that they do that I didn't really buy. Really, I think yeah, it all kind of comes down to Valentine's plan because it's a really large and like gigantic proposition and thing that he's trying to pull off. And
There's a lot of
yeah, and
there's a lot of holes that could go
also I
wrong with
realized I
that.
forgot to mention this. Gazelle is a cool, you know, like lethal sidekick, but why they do not really match. Like, why the fuck is she with him? Unless he was some like creepy inventor guy who like built her legs, it doesn't really make sense why he would have hired her, or why actually no why she would why they're together. It doesn't make they're working together. It doesn't make sense to me. Like they don't match at all, and there's no explanation
Yeah,
on her feet at all. Which I could if there was enough, if there was more on him, and if he had a background that would make sense on why she had that, fine. But anyway, I forgot to mention that part. But anyway, yeah, I think the plan overall was just so it was like it was so big that it like it seemed I will say I didn't find the climax to be, you know, when there's climaxes where they're just like wow that was easy, like that seemed I wouldn't really quite say that. I would because
yeah.
there were a lot of pieces and a lot of things that they had to do to pull it off and to succeed, and I found all of that plausible. But I agree that his plan also it it's a plan that like was he seemed to think it was too big to fail, when in fact that was the fact that it was so big made it it helped Kingsman win.
It really did. Like, yeah, because like for the most part, Merlin was able to hack his network pretty easily in order to cause the implants to explode, therefore killing pretty much and everyone that supported and was working for Valentine in this plan, except for Valentine and Gazelle, um, and like a couple other people that like led into the sequel. But it was just the fact that Merlin was able to do that so easily and kill pretty much every obstacle that Eggsy was facing leading up to that is just like, okay, this is gonna be a short fight. Um, but yeah, it was just really not really a major problem that I had because it led to like a really cool like stylistic
Yeah,
like like the like the exploding heads going to the song. It was a really cool moment, but it's like I don't feel like we earned it. Like it just seemed like it was not really a cop out, but it was just there wasn't I don't know. It just came too easy for the audience. Like, oh, let me hack the mainframe, and it's like hacking solves every problem. It was like the Batmobile, not the Batmobile, the Bat belt of the Batman's utility belt problem solving tool to everything. It's like if I hack it enough, it'll eventually not be a problem. Like the kind of mentality that a lot of movies seem to have of if I do this, it won't be a problem, and it's just that's their solution for everything, and it always works no matter what the situation is. Hold on, let me hack this wooden door. Now it won't
yeah,
be unlocked. It's like
I
that makes no
yeah.
sense, but it worked
Um,
anyway. Thank you.
but overall, like, despite our problems with it, I do really enjoy this movie, and I really recommend it. And they're totally fun. And the second one has even more problems,
Yeah,
but I do actually really enjoy the second one as well. Um, I think I will. Let me just say this now: Channing Tatum is not as important as he is. He is not in it nearly as much as he is advertised to be. I'm just going to say that right now.
yeah,
Even Michael Caine is barely in
yeah.
this
No,
movie.
that's a problem that the Kingsman movies seem to have. They advertise on like the wrong characters that have the least amount of screen time or like very little importance, and it's like why who is in charge of your marketing team?
Like,
It makes no
I
fucking
mean,
sense, and
I
it's
mean,
honestly very infuriating.
yeah, I mean, if they're in it, fine, but they should like he shouldn't even Michael Caine shouldn't be on the cover because he's not like yeah, like
No,
even like a like Pedro Pascal is pretty important in the next one. Like he actually does a lot more and is much more involved than Channing Tatum. But he was Channing Tatum's way more well known at least at that time than
yeah,
so I get at for advertising reasons, but also that's very misleading. And I was like, what? Why was everybody so excited for Channing Tatum? He's barely in this movie. He was fun, but he was not in the movie for very long. But yeah, that's an
yeah,
issue with Kingsman for
I
sure.
think he's like in like a total like what like 3 scenes in the second movie.
Immediately gets like, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole thing, but yeah, he's in the very beginning, and then he's like out for rest of the movie until like the very end.
Yeah, he gets KO'd pretty quick. So yeah, so how would you rate this movie, Sam? On a scale of uh almost getting shot dogs.
Wait,
Too
I
morbid.
mean, I was saying, do I want to give it like 3 shot dogs? I feel like for if I like it, or is that if it's the more dogs you give it, the worse it is?
All right, this is getting too morbid for me. Sam, where can these lovely people find our voices?
You started this.
I'm abandoning that joke. Fuck it, I'm abandoning that
Abandoned
joke.
ship,
I
abandoned
started it, I'm
ship.
editing it. Let's go.
You can find us.
It was a shit
You
joke.
can
Let's
find us
go.
pretty much wherever you can find podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube. Follow us on Instagram. We always give updates on what's coming up. Um, and yeah, like summer is always, we both love this time of year, and July is always really fun. So yeah, I'm really pumped.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next few episodes we have lined up for you guys. So yeah, that being said, I'm Kevin Tracy,
I'm Samantha Tomlinson.
and you've been listening to Movie Reel. Stay tuned next time, folks. Bye bye.